Welcome. This video is predicting that the US stock market will peak just prior to the Super Bowl. And then after the Super Bowl, the stock market will collapse or begin its biggest crash in all of history. And in this video, I will explain the prophetic significance regarding this upcoming Super Bowl, regarding all of this. This Super Bowl that will be played on February 8th, 2026. There's so much to explain in this amazing video. And first, let's just get the intro out of the way here, which is that this email was composed on February 4th, prior to the Super Bowl, prior to the collapse of the stock market, if this so happens to come to pass after the Super Bowl next week. Today is Wednesday, February 4th. Okay, and so this prediction, when it comes to pass, will prove that the righteous Christian God of the Bible is the true God, and it will prove the controversial things that I'll be saying in this video, which is the purpose of this prediction that is from God, to prove the controversial things that I say on this channel. And so predicting that there will be a stock market crash is one thing, and there are people out there that are predicting such a thing. There are also very, very few people, but they do exist, that are predicting that soon there will be the biggest stock market crash in history. But this is one step way beyond that. This is predicting the precise timing of this peak of the stock market and subsequent beginning of the crash. In fact, I think the all-time peak will be on February 6th. I'm not 100% sure, and it may only be with one stock index. Maybe it'll be the Dow Jones that will make its all-time peak on February 6th, which would be the main index of the Wall Street stock market. But that said, either way, if February 6th isn't the peak, if you look at a stock market chart on today's date, February 4th, it's at the high. I mean, it's just below the all-time peak right now. So if it goes to another new peak on February 6th, so be it. That's the prediction. But it's also predicted to begin the biggest crash in history after the Super Bowl. Okay, that's what we're talking about in this video. Now, like I'm saying, that's quite a precise prediction, which makes it from God. But if you, for some reason, can't accept that because you're a hardcore agnostic atheist religionist, a follower of a true dogmatic fundamentalist religion that requires enormous amounts of blind faith to believe, if you are one of those people, which is the small minority of people in our culture today, then the reasons that I'll be giving in this video will prove the matter. And what is the matter? That it is a prediction from God. In other words, the reasons that I'll be explaining, as you will see in this video, could not have been concocted in the imagination of a human being. And so these reasons, in conjunction with this prediction, make it indisputable that this prediction is from God. And to not appreciate this makes you a fool, a completely irrational person. That said, people aren't rational by nature, and nor is the assemblance of one's worldview the result of a rational process. And in psychology, there's something called belief perseverance, which states that when countered with information that contradicts their worldview, people block it out and they ignore it. It goes in one ear, out the other. And why is that? Well, because people don't want to change their worldview. It requires, therefore, changing themselves because people are their worldview. And life is a test of humility, the opposite of pride in the Bible. And it's requiring an enormous amount of humility to change one's worldview. But that's the reason for that. It is because life is a test of humility. Or if you will, instead of the word test, we could call it an opportunity to choose from one's own free will what they want to do about their existence and the reality of God. Do they want to be with a righteous God that they're accountable to for their sin forever, or do they want to go their own way? Live out their life and then see what happens after they die, like the agnostic atheist tells themselves with the lie, the biggest lie of all, which is that, well, I don't know about the biggest lie of all, but the big lie that has been propagated with enormous amounts of propaganda for a couple of centuries now is that materialism, the fairy tale for adults, explains our world. And the core belief of the religion of agnostic atheism, because every religion has a core belief and every worldview is a religion, the core belief of the agnostic atheist religion being, well, there may or may not be a God, but it's impossible to know because there is no evidence for God. And that's, of course, absurd beyond the nth degree. Like I said, a big lie. Okay. And anyway, this video will attempt to help you. But on one other note, the majority of people in the West today are not agnostic atheists. If asked whether they believe in a God or not, the majority would say yes, but not like the God of the Bible. And the majority of these people barely think about the matter because they think they don't need to. But their idea when they say that is that it's an Eastern religious sort of idea about God. In other words, the Indian Hindu religion has replaced Christianity in the West. And so the majority of people are something like what you might call a New Ager or New Spirituality or something like that. They're not really materialists, this really, really outdated idea from late 18th, early 19th century science, when they thought, well, we don't need a flood to explain geology, and so therefore there's no God. The ridiculous conclusion. Anyway, that's enough of this introduction here. What I'm saying is that the reasons for this prediction will prove beyond a doubt. Okay? All right, now let's get into these reasons. So Kendrick Lamar, this famous rapper, won Record of the Year at the Grammys on February 1st, 2026 for his song named Luther, which is named after Luther Vandross, the famous singer from like the 1980s type of thing. It was the 68th Grammys, and Barack Obama is equal to 68 in simple English gematria. A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3. Like I said at the beginning, the purpose of this prediction that is from God is to prove the controversial things that I'll be saying in this video. And I know far better than you or anyone the reason and purpose for this prediction from God and the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction. And it is not for you to go, oh, cool, neat. You were able to know ahead of time when exactly the stock market would peak and then begin its biggest crash in history. That's pretty neat. No, this is not the reason for this prediction. And I know more than you. The reason for this prediction is to prove the controversial things that I'll be saying. And there is no debate. Zero. Case closed. No discussion at all when this prediction comes to pass. This is the purpose of prophecy. The reason why 1/3 of the Bible is prophecy is for God to prove the matter of the Bible. It's the same with his prophetic signs. And I know the purpose of these prophetic signs that I'll be explaining in this video and this prediction, which will prove the matter. Which is that Barack Obama is the second of the two antichrists described in Bible prophecy. And there is no discussion. So if you are an evangelical playing the game that evangelicals love to play, which is the Antichrist guessing game, it's time to stop. And to not appreciate that is to not appreciate this prediction or this video or video channel. You are wasting your time. So turn off the video and continue to waste your time playing the Antichrist guessing game, if that's your choice. Okay, now Cher is a figure that's prophetic in God's signs. I won't elaborate any more than that. I won't elaborate on the proof for that or the examples, but she symbolizes age reversal, which is what will be promised through the mark of the Antichrist, through the transhumanism technology that people put inside themselves and have already done so. So that's what Cher in general symbolizes here, okay? Like, for example, her big hit, If I Could Turn Back Time, which she performed recently on the 50th anniversary of Saturday Night Live, over the age of 80, dressed in a body stocking, because she has objectively defied aging. But she's symbolic of what I just said, and there's more proof of that, tons more, but that's enough. So yes, when Cher read the winner, so she was the one at the awards. This was a very prophetic Grammy Awards. I'm just giving you a small slice of what happened here in this Grammys, this 68th Barack Obama Grammys, okay? So anyway, she presented the award for Record of the Year, and when she read out the winner, she read out, instead of Luther, the name of the song, she read Luther Vandross, okay? Also, the lyrics are about, quote, imagining a better future for one's loved ones, which hints at Martin Luther King. Now, on the same day of the Grammys, we had the story about the mother of the famous TV news broadcaster from the show Today, Savannah Guthrie, having been abducted from her bed the night prior and then reported to have been missing the following day, on the day of the Grammys, when she failed to attend church. I immediately recognized that this was probably prophetic, and then discovered that it really is very prophetic, because I had known, because in God's signs previously, Savannah Guthrie has been used by God. And the reason is that Savannah hints at where Barack Obama was born, in the Kenyan savannah. I'm not going to prove that to you right now, but it is a case closed thing. There's no discussion about that. When this prediction comes to pass, he was born in Kenya. Case closed. I hope I'm clear. There's no debate. We are running out of time for that sort of thing. You should have looked into it already, and if you had, you would know that this is true. But God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections, which is only being explained on this channel, overwhelmingly proves these controversial things that I'm saying, and this true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections will be proven to be true when this prediction comes to pass. And this is the purpose for this prediction. And I know the purpose of this prediction more than you do. Okay. So Luther hints at Guthrie. God plays like this. Now, so let's see. Luther Vandross was born on this date, April 20th, 1951, exactly 933 months before the Antichrist, Barack Obama, will return to the White House as the vice president to Michelle Obama, the president, on January 20th, 2029. I think the Strong's concordance number here is solid and hints at the White House. So if I recall, this G939 is equal to a royal palace or like that, okay? Okay, and so that's why, because this date represents the White House and the return of the Antichrist, the king, the Antichrist king to the White House. All right, now, Vandross won 4 plus 4 Grammys in his career. That's confirmation that we are on to something, as I wrote here. Because again, this Grammys here, the record of the year is Luther, named after Luther Vandross. And Vandross was a big Grammys guy. He won 4 plus 4 of them, which is a lot. Now, his birth date is also exactly 693 months before his first inauguration. And H693 is to lie in ambush, lie in wait. So the Antichrist got into power, was in the office for 8 years, did his insidious deeds, traitorous deeds, where he, among many other things, filled the deep state with communists, etc. And now and from that time he's been lying in wait. His time is coming, which, by the way, is prophesied in the prophecy in his autobiography from a prophetic dream that he had, which he doesn't understand because he doesn't know that he's the Antichrist. Maybe he knows now, but not at the time of the dream or when he wrote the autobiography. Anyway, Luther Vandross's cause of death was a heart attack. This was a couple of years after having a severe stroke. He had health problems such as diabetes and hypertension. He was a homosexual, so there was also speculation that he had AIDS. Makes sense? Okay? So he had all these problems, and because he was a homosexual, it's quite likely that he had AIDS. But what the proof of this is the prophetic context. Okay? Now I'll prove that he had AIDS through God, through the prophetic context, because of his name Vandross. Because the V in Vandross plus the AIDS hints at VAIDS. The VACCINE induced AIDS. Right? V Andros plus AIDS equals VAIDS. There'll be more proof of this as we go here. Luther Vandross was born exactly 62 years after Hitler died. No. Yeah, born, sorry. And Martin Luther was 62 years old when he was said to have died on February 18th, 1546. Well, anyway, 62 is the 22nd semi-prime number, and the number 22 in God's signs symbolizes the mark of the Antichrist. Because the inverse of the mark of the Antichrist, described in the book of Ezekiel, would have been a Tav mark, and the Tav is the last and 22nd letter of the Hebrew alphabet, and the mark of the Antichrist is described in the last and 22nd book out of a total of 22 books in the Bible that have a total of 22 chapters. Also, the mark of the Antichrist alters a person's chromosomes, and chromosomes come in pairs, and each chromosome has 2 arms, and so 2 and 2. And the mark of the Antichrist hints at the Antichrist genocide that's coming, which hints at Hitler. And the Nazis, of course, experimented with injections at Auschwitz with Joseph Mengele, who God has also proven to be prophetic in his signs. Okay, so 62. So this Luther Vandross guy was born exactly 62 years after Hitler was born. But that's astounding because of the number 22 here. Now, there's more. Martin Luther King Jr. was shot on the date 4-4 in the 4 times 4th state near the king's estate. Okay, and 30 years in the Bible symbolizes a king, and he died exactly 30 years after the birth of the 7th commissioner of baseball. Long story, but through the 7th commissioner of baseball, God pointed to the 1st commissioner of baseball, who was given unchecked power over every person in baseball, Just like the Antichrist will be given unchecked power over everyone in America in a time of crisis, the first commissioner was given unchecked power in a time of crisis in baseball, exactly 666 days after the 6+6+6th Amendment was ratified, which restricted the buying and selling of alcohol, which hints at the coming restriction on buying and selling food that will be rationed to only those who take the mark of the Antichrist, as described in Bible prophecy. Which is, by the way, why Augustus Caesar took complete control of the food supply of Rome in the year 22 BC. 22, Mark. Obama born in August. Augustus. Right, now. And of course, he's the 44th president, which is why Luther King was shot, as in Mark of the Antichrist shot, because the things that come out of guns and go into people are symbolic of the things that come out of things and go into people, on the date 404 in the 4 times 4th state, which hints at the Antichrist king. And it was near the king's estate in Memphis, which is symbolic of the Temple Mount. In fact, Jesus was crucified just north and east of the Temple Mount, and where King was shot was just north and east of the Graceland estate. Because we know where the location of Golgotha is. Okay, now the Vandross special, I guess this documentary TV special about Luther Vandross, aired on the first day of the year, and he won 8 Grammys, and this was exactly 13 months before the Kendrick Lamar Luther Award, which Cher read as Luther Vandross. So the first of the year and the 8 Grammys, and the 13 gives us 13 and 18, which hints at Revelation 13:18, which is the passage that describes the mark of the Antichrist, which gives people AIDS, because it causes their bodies to attack their own immune system, which is what AIDS does. And of course, that's very straightforward, and it's fairly basic. You don't need to be a scientist to know this. But the thing that people took causes them to produce something foreign in their bodies. And the body is designed to attack anything that's foreign. I mean, it's not funny, but it's so absurd that it's funny. The hysteria and the propaganda that caused them to take this evil thing, the mark of the Antichrist. And incidentally, it is the mark of the Antichrist. It's not a supposed precursor to the mark of the Antichrist. It does not need an additional something to go with it, such as an additional technology or false form of religious worship. For those who are wise, it did come with a false form of religious worship, which was leftist politics and the state, etc. The worship of the state, the worship of their politics, which has replaced the worship of God for secular leftists. And it does not need a supposed new age of dispensation, after supposedly all quote-unquote Christians will be raptured. In fact, one of the main reasons why the vast majority of Christians, quote-unquote, have already taken the mark of the Antichrist is it is in fact judgment for this particular doctrine, the Nicolaitan doctrine of our day, which Jesus said he hates and is coming to make war with the sword of his mouth on those that teach and have the works that are a product of this doctrine. Which is dispensationalism, which is the package in which comes free grace or cheap grace or once saved, always saved, or our righteousness is as filthy rags. One verse that Luther took out of context to prop up his entire theology. And incidentally, Luther wanted to remove from the Bible the book of Revelation because the Nicolaitan doctrine and the letters to the churches contradict his doctrine, which is why evangelicals have developed a workaround solution called dispensationalism, to try to explain away how Jesus is talking about the relevance of people's works regarding their salvation. And furthermore, making the rapture, which Jesus said clearly only one of the 7 churches would make, the Church of Philadelphia. The modern evangelical church, the Church of Laodicea, is the church that thinks it is in need of nothing, but yet does not realize that it is blind, pitiable, and naked, and Jesus wants to vomit it out of his mouth, and is knocking at the door because he is not inside that church. And why do they think they are in need of nothing? Well, it's not what a Nicolaitan will tell you, which is, well, it's a product of, prosperity in our time. Well, no. That's no offense, that's silly. Because there are poor, destitute evangelicals around the world in poor countries or whatever, in circumstances, and everyone's got hardship in their life furthermore. So that's not the reason. The reason is their doctrine. The doctrine that tells them that they are in need of nothing. Obviously. The doctrine that tells them that our righteousness is as filthy rags, and once saved, always saved. The doctrine that Jesus hates and is coming to make war with on those that teach and have the works that are a product of this doctrine. And so dispensationalism was created as a workaround solution for this thing. But if you look at it, the letters to the churches were written to the churches in Asia Minor a long time before the rapture. Jesus wasn't only talking to, according to these dispensationalists, those that will be left behind after the rapture. That's absurd. There's nothing to indicate that in the Bible. This is a silly workaround solution to support their false doctrine that Jesus said he hates, and rightly so. Now, when this prediction comes to pass, it will prove what I have just said. Case closed. There is no debate at all. I hope I'm clear. There's no more debate. Stop with the debate. If you are a dispensationalist, or if you are a eternal security guy, or a once saved, always saved guy, a free grace guy, or furthermore, its close cousin, Reformed theology, sovereign grace, and Calvinism, all of that, it's from Satan. And I know the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction. It is to prove what I have just said. And so, my friend, it is now time for you finally to listen carefully to the arguments from the other side, which you have been ignoring. And why is that? It's very deceptive and satanic. Why is that? All of the false doctrines, all of these cults, etc., which this is like a cult. It is a cult. I mean, the free grace doctrine was the cult that almost destroyed the spiritual founding of America in the Massachusetts Bay Colony through the Anne Hutchinson Revolt. And there was a reason for that, because Satan was working through her. She was ultimately banished, lived in Rhode Island before she was murdered by Native Indians. Not exactly the outcome you would expect if she was speaking the truth. And the thing that Satan does with this is he attempts to divide the church, which is exactly how these free grace people behave. I mean, they're the most divisive people you'll ever meet. And they think that they aren't. That's the irony. They think they're doing good. They think they are righteous Christians, and the others are the divisive ones. But no, they are the wicked, divisive ones. Well, I wouldn't say wicked, but they are acting wickedly when they do this. And so what I was getting at, though, is that the reason why these people don't listen to the other side is because in their mind, to do so jeopardizes their salvation, which is the insidious trick that Satan has played. Because in their worldview, one needs to have and hold the precise, correct doctrine to be saved. One needs to intellectually believe the correct thing to be saved, which is absurd. And furthermore, it contradicts the Apostles' Creed, if anything, but it's absurd. Of course, the Bible is very clear that one does not get saved through believing the correct thing. Christianity is a doing. And when we read the Bible without these workaround solutions, it's very clear, and that every other passage in the Bible and the New Testament contradicts their doctrine. Every other passage, it seems, contradicts their doctrine. Like, it's just mind-boggling how this has become so popular in our day. Anyway, it is the Nicolaitan doctrine of our day. That's enough of this subject because, I talk about it for too many minutes and too many videos. And if you are a Christian, watch the 23 church signs video. But again, I know the reason and purpose for this prediction more than you do, and it is to prove what I have just said. And so it's time for you to finally start figuring out how you are wrong about the Calvinism and free grace dispensationalism that you believe. Okay. So, where was I? So I was down here maybe. So this 13 years connection is also 1 year and 31 days, which gives us a combination of 2 1s and a 3, which God has developed as a pattern repeatedly to hint at, for one thing, G131, which is why, by the way, Coronavirus Day, and then 1 year later exactly, Biden's speech on the anniversary, which he did say was the anniversary of Coronavirus Day, was the date 3/11. But anyway, G131 is the reason for this, and that's the word in the Greek concordance that means blood disease, which is what a person gets when they take the mark of the Antichrist, which was the thing that was supposedly to counter the coronavirus, which gives people AIDS. Blood disease. Oh yeah, that's where I was. I was talking about how this thing gets your body through its DNA to produce the protruding amino acid chain. You know what I'm talking about. That's on the virus to protrude from the surface of your cells, which then your body then attacks. And I just recently read that there's studies that show that these people's production of this has increased over time. I was thinking it might have decreased. But this is the truth about, or behind, for example, LONG COVID. All right. Now, this date, April 20th, 51, Vandross was born. This was exactly the 22nd triangular number of weeks before after Trump was born. And it was the 22nd semi-prime number of years after Hitler was born. There's a pattern here. Trump being God's trumpet. Hitler being symbolic of the Antichrist. who will enforce the mark of the Antichrist, symbolized by the number 22, as I explained. This birth date of Vandros, which hints at Vades, was also the 36th semi-prime number of months exactly after the final solution at the Wannsee Conference on January 20th, 1942. Okay, and in God's signs, 36 hints at 666. It's 3 sixes. It's also 6 times 6, and also 2 times 18, which is 6 plus 6 plus 6. And the 36th triangular number, which in a triangle of numbers, the last number in the 36th row is 666. And 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 all the way up to 36 equals 666. Okay, and so the final solution, which is the genocide, is hinting at the coming genocide, or the genocide that's begun, but will accelerate. And it connects with the birth of Mr. Vades, the Vandross singer who had AIDS. Now, V is the 22nd letter, and that proves everything. Why all these 22 connections here? Because Vandross hints at Vades, because V is the 22nd letter. That's the proof. It's all about the mark of the Antichrist. Now, the thing is, Luther Vandross gives us L and V, which gives us 12, the 12th letter of the alphabet, and the 22nd letter. And this hints at 122. The 122nd longitudinal line is San Francisco, which is where this Super Bowl will be played. The name San Francisco is equal to 122 in simple English gematria. A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3. And Pope Francis is equal to 122, as in San Francisco. Pope Francis is equal to 122 in simple English gematria. Okay, but Luther Vandross hints at this year's Super Bowl. Because as I wrote right here, in Roman numerals, which is how Super Bowls are written, this is an important Roman numeral. L and V are Roman numerals, which gives us Super Bowl 60. Well, actually, it doesn't. This is a typo, but it's fine. Bear with me a second. Okay, so this Super Bowl, San Francisco, 122nd longitude, Pope Francis, like I just said, 122, which is hinted at with LV, Luther Vandross. And this record of the year for Luther, the song, is 7 days before the Super Bowl. Okay, now Kendrick Lamar performed Luther at the halftime show of a Super Bowl, which was last year, Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans, the 6 plus 6 plus 6th state. So Vandross reportedly died on what would have been Princess Diana's 44th birthday. And Princess Diana was born 34 days before Barack Obama, which is the 22nd composite number. But that's all relevant because Michelle Obama promoted her book Becoming on the chartered boat on the Seine River in Paris, exactly when the Notre Dame Cathedral was on fire. In fact, there's an iconic picture of her on the roof of the boat promoting her book Becoming, her sipping a wine glass, and in the reflection of the wine glass, you can see the Notre Dame Cathedral burning. So in other words, she was drinking the burning church. And of course, there's a prophecy about the harlot and also drinking in the blasphemous cup in the book of Revelation. Okay. Now, Princess Diana, the connection is that she died at the bridge right where that river is. So that hints at Michelle Obama being royalty. She will be the coming queen of America, which is why her prophetic faux pas, which is a French word, when she hugged the queen. Another thing to back this up, Paul McCartney has a famous song, Michelle, and he composed it while he was hanging out with bohemians on the Seine River, at the Seine River in Paris. And he sang this song to Michelle Obama and Barack Obama in the White House. one of his biggest hits of all time, Michelle. Okay, so that's why it's relevant that Luther Vandross died on the 44th anniversary of the birth of Diana, Princess Diana, because it hints at how Barack Obama will become the president again through Queen Michelle, the 44th president. Okay? There's lots more to that, but that's another subject for another video. Now, February 8th, this Super Bowl will be 404 days after the Luther special, which also hints at the 44th president. Luther Vandross won Song of the Year in the year 04. It's 2004, which could hint at 2 4s as in the 44th president. Now, the thing is, the song was Dance With My Father, the song that won Song of the Year for Luther Vandross. And this was 22 years before Lamar won Record of the Year for his song Luther, named after Luther Vandross, which Cher said, the name Luther Vandross. And V equals 22, which is more confirmation of what I've been saying, is that the purpose of Luther Vandross is to hint at this letter V and how he had AIDS. Because it's hinting at Vades, which is why, again, it ties to Hitler and the final solution, right? Because the mark of the Antichrist that will continue the ongoing genocide. Dance With My Father hints at Catholicism and the quote-unquote Holy Father, Pope Francis. Dance With My Father is from his 14th album. Number 14 in this year's Super Bowl in San Francisco will play the quarterback, lead the team from the 42nd state. In Bible prophecy, a period of 42 months is symbolic of the period of the Antichrist, King, which is why this team also plays in King County, by the way, next to the Space Needle, which hints at the transhumanism technology needle that is the mark of the Antichrist, which will be promoted by demons pretending to be aliens from space. And also, it's the 42nd state, and it's the needle in King County. That's because the king, Elvis Presley, died at the age of 42 and is responsible for the popularity of the VACCINE industry, because he took it, the polio one, before performing at the Ed Sullivan Show in front of the press, which thereafter popularized taking things with the baby boomer generation, and the rest is history. And also, that's why Elvis Presley went to the World's Fair in Seattle at the opening of the Space Needle to film a movie. It happened at the World's Fair. Okay. Well, anyway, the Antichrist king is also part of this prophecy because of King Apollyon in the Bible prophecy, in context of the demonic possession that people will undergo who have taken the mark of the Antichrist. Okay. Now, so it could be that this number 14 player for the Seahawks will be the MVP of the game. It's either that, well, I'll get to that in a second. The Super Bowl will be played in San Francisco, which hints at Pope Francis, and Pope Francis will replace Leo the 14th. There's more 14s associated with Pope Francis, but I forget. But anyway, Martin Luther began the Protestant Reformation with his 95 Theses. 9 plus 5 equals 14. This is why the MVP in San Francisco could be, not will be, could be number 14. But also, obviously, this proves, when this prediction comes to pass, that Catholicism is not a legitimate denomination of Christianity. And that God absolutely hates Catholicism. I want to be clear. God absolutely hates Catholicism. That said, God does not hate Catholics. But if a Catholic is to be saved, it'll be in spite of their Catholicism and not because of it. But the thing that God hates the most in the Bible, which Catholics are ignorant about, the Bible in general, is the mixing of God's true religion with the pagan religion of their neighbors, the Jews and their neighbors. Ultimately, and constantly chastising them for it, and ultimately exiling them to Babylon, which is why Babylon is a metaphor for pagan religion, and why Peter, who was never in Rome, referred to Rome in the Bible as Babylon. Because that's exactly what Catholicism is. When Rome converted to Catholicism, it didn't do away with its pagan traditions and religion. It just repackaged it into a wrapper that made it look like Christianity, but it's pagan religion mixed with the true religion, just like the Jews did, the thing that God hates the most. And if you don't know that Catholicism is pagan religion, reinterpreted and repackaged, I feel sorry for you. You barely know anything. No offense. Because, just for example, the worship of Mary is a continuation of the worship of the fertility goddess. And the reason why St. Peter's Square is a big obelisk in the center with the columns in a circular formation around it, it's the ancient symbol for fertility, with the phallus, the obelisk, and the circle being the symbol for the vagina. Which is also why the dome on top of the St. Peter's Basilica, it's the same symbolism. Now, prophetically, God has also arranged this same symbolism in Washington, D.C., with the Washington Monument and the Capitol building dome. Because these are the two capitals in the end times of the two antichrists that are described in the Bible prophecy. Barack Obama will get his power, as Bible prophecy says, from the first antichrist, Pope Francis, after demons resurrect him from the dead and claim that he is the ambassador for the world for the aliens that they claim to be. Okay. So, where was I? Now, the predicted MVP, number 14, possibly, will be awarded in Super Bowl 60. Again, it's a typo, but I'm getting there. Hold on a second. In San Francisco, 266 days, okay? And Pope Francis was the 266th Pope. Okay, so this Super Bowl MVP, or this Super Bowl in San Francisco, will be 266 days after Leo the 14th was inaugurated. In other words, what I'm saying is that if he's not the MVP, he'll be involved in some prophetic way. And this prophetic way in which he will be involved on this date will be exactly 266 days after Leo the 14th was inaugurated. And that serves to point to the 266th Pope as the Antichrist. San Francisco, Pope Francis. And again, this player plays for the team that symbolizes the Antichrist. Not only that, but not only what I mentioned earlier, but it's also the Seattle Seahawks, which are unclean birds, which is the metaphor for the cardinals in Bible prophecy, Revelation chapter 18. Mystery Babylon, which is Rome. And it's clearly Rome. No, it's not New York City, for those that think it is. Okay. Now, the MVP award is hinted at with the Record of the Year award for Luther, which hints at the 95 Theses, and 9 plus 5 equals 14. And if the MVP is number 14, we get this line right here will be relevant. But even if he's just used prophetically, it'd still be relevant. But it's just interesting that it's an award, and so is the MVP, an award. Now, this Grammys was again 22 years after Luther V, as in the 22nd letter, won Song of the Year, Dance with My Father, as in Holy Father Pope Francis, from his 14th album. Also, 2 plus 6 plus 6, as in the 266th Pope, equals 14. In other words, the existence of Leo XIV after the death of Pope Francis is a prophetic sign in itself that hints at how Pope Francis will be resurrected from the dead and then replace Pope Leo the 14th, because 14 is 2 plus 6 plus 6. Now, Super Bowl LV, as in Luther Vandross, was Super Bowl 55, not 60. Super Bowl 60 is LX. X, in God's signs, symbolizes the mark of the Antichrist, which is the number 22, which is symbolized by the number 22, and V is the 22nd letter. So in other words, LV does hint at LX. Now, Super Bowl 55 was the 5G Super Bowl. Tom Brady and Gronkowski, for example, did a commercial for 5G, and it was shortly after 5G was first installed, like literally days after. It was the 5G Super Bowl, which is why also at the end of the halftime show with the Weeknd performance, the zombies with bandages around their faces collapsed onto the field chaotically because, well, the 5G is going to do that to people who have taken the mark of the Antichrist, and they'll be demonically possessed. Anyway, Super Bowl 55 was the COVID Super Bowl. The stadium wasn't filled. It was partially filled because of that. And that, again, hints at the mark, which is symbolized by the number 22. And V is the 22nd letter. But there's this also. Tom Brady. It was Tom Brady's big prophetic Super Bowl win because he won the Super Bowl while not playing with the Patriots. And that highlights how he was playing for Tampa Bay. And the game was played in Tampa Bay. T and B, as in Tampa Bay or Tom Brady, gives us the 20th letter and a second letter, which is 22, which is the number that symbolizes the mark. And 22nd letter is the V. So that's why Super Bowl LV hints at LX. Another way. The Buccaneers also won by 22 points. That Super Bowl. The one that hints at 22. Now, the Buccaneers Super Bowl win over the Chiefs was exactly 6 plus 6 plus 6 years after the Super Bowl that was nicknamed the Pirate Bowl between the Buccaneers and the Raiders, both names of pirates. Because pirates are symbolic in God's signs of fallen angels, or, if you will, demons from the bottomless pit that are described in the prophecy in the context of them then, after rising from the bottomless pit, demonically possessing people for 5 months, which is another reason for the 5G Super Bowl 55 Super Bowl connecting with the Pirate Bowl and the Buccaneers Super Bowl. And the commercial by Brady, the GOAT, for 5G. Biden's V for Vendetta speech. If you recall, there was this controversial speech on September 1st, 2022. A horrific thing to watch, where he spoke outside the Freedom Hall in Philadelphia, or Constitution Hall, I should say, and at nighttime, in front of the backdrop with the red light shining off the bricks. It was like a speech from hell. But it paralleled the speech in the movie V for Vendetta, where the antagonist gives the big villainous speech. V for Vendetta. So it was nicknamed the V for Vendetta speech, or the speech from hell. And anyway, this day of his speech is 1,260 days to February 12th. But I think it's probably close enough to the Super Bowl date. The reason for the discrepancy and the forgiveness of the 4-day difference is because there's good reasons, which I won't explain here, for why the date 1/9 was used for the speech from hell. And of course, Super Bowls can only be held on a Sunday. And that's a main reason why we give God for lenience with it not being an exact connection when a date of the week needs to be included. It's not always the case that you can give this lenience, but I think we can do so here. Regardless, it's not really that important. It would just provide one more confirmation, because 1260 days is a period of time and mentioned 7 times in Bible prophecy that symbolizes the period of the Antichrist. Barack Obama, Biden's old pal. Now, Biden's V for Vendetta Hitler speech, okay, is the way to call it. MLK was assassinated in 68, and Lamar won for Luther. I should say Martin Luther King was assassinated in the year 68, and Lamar won for Luther at the 68th Grammys, and Barack Obama, the name equals 668. The name Barack Obama equals 68 in simple English gematria. Luther Vandross was born on April 20th, 1951, exactly 933 months before the predicted return of the Antichrist. In Strong's, I already did this. Let's see. Okay, so Kamala Harris and Gavin Newsom are both from San Francisco. Their plane is predicted to crash on the date 8, 2, and 28, which hints at the number 28, which is 2 times 2 times 7. And the fraction 22 over 7 is the closest approximation of pi, 3.14. And they're predicted to crash in the area code 314, St. Louis. And Kamala Harris is the 49th vice president, and 227 is the 49th prime number. And the Antichrist, Pope Francis, rhymes with St. Louis, or is hinted at with St. Louis. And Pope Francis, the Antichrist, is described in Isaiah chapter 31:4. And they will crash into Busch Stadium in the area code 314. And it is in Exodus 3:14 that God says his name is I am, which is in Hebrew the exact same symbol as the symbol for pi, which is 3.14, which is why the symbol for I am is in Exodus 3:14. Now, their flight will be on its way to LAX. Super Bowl LX, this year's Super Bowl in San Francisco, where these two people are predicted to be from, or are from and will be predicted to die in a plane that will be on its way to LAX. So Super Bowl LX in San Francisco hints at this, or will hint at this. And again, or not again, but for the first time in this video, but I've said before, this Super Bowl will be the 3rd Super Bowl for the Patriots without Brady and Belichick, and maybe the MVP will be number 14, and that will give us 3.14. Brady and Belichick is another 22. The B being the second letter of the alphabet, BB, 22. X being symbolic of the mark of the Antichrist in God's signs, which is symbolized by the number 22. Because, for one thing, chromosomes engender an X. Pairs of chromosomes. They look like an X. As explained through Santana, the musician, at the Grammys, who received his Lifetime Award, and his wife, Deborah, who conducted all of the business affairs for him in his life for 34 years. As explained through Santana and his wife, Deborah, the Grammys and Lamar and Luther on February 1st connects to the predicted plane crash on August 2nd, 2028 with 913 days. And that's because G913 in the Bible, in the Greek concordance, I should say, is the word for Barak. And it is Barak and Deborah who are the judges that lead Israel to defeat its enemies. So in other words, Barak and Deborah are paired in the Bible, which is why God has been pairing this in his signs, including, for example, Hurricane Deborah. But that's another story. That was in 2024, by the way. All right, so that confirms the 913 days connection, which is astounding. And the plane crash will be near Little Egypt and the king's palace, or rather the king's estate, which is symbolic of the king's palace in the Bible, where the king of Egypt is. And in the Bible, the king of Egypt is a type for the Antichrist and Satan, which is why Santana connects to this predicted plane crash. because Santana hints at Satan. Now, the Grammys was 11 months and 23 days after Kendrick Lamar performed Luther at the Super Bowl during the halftime show. So Lamar won his award 11 months, 23 days after he performed at the halftime show. 11 times 23 is a 22nd triangular number. Also, 1123 is the 188th prime number, and H188 is the word in the Hebrew concordance that means woe exclamation mark used in the Bible in the context of extreme judgment from God. Bad Bunny will perform at this year's halftime show in San Francisco. Bad Bunny is known for his controversy through supporting illegal aliens, which in God's signs are symbolic of the demons who will pretend to be aliens. The invasion of illegal aliens is symbolic of the coming invasion of demons after they rise from the bottomless pit and cross over the bridge into the earthly realm. Oh, and San Francisco is known for its bridges. Of course. Yes. Wow. Now, Bad Bunny gives us also BB, which hints at 22. As I mentioned, Brady Belichick also. And that gives us the letter V. This is another way in which this LX Super Bowl also is LV, Luther Vandross. All right, now, there was this TV series called V, which was about an invasion of aliens. The season, there were 2 of them, and it had 22 episodes. Again, the aliens that will be demons pretending to be aliens will promote the mark of the Antichrist, which is symbolized by the number 22, which changes a person's chromosomes, which come in pairs and have 2 arms, 2 and 2. The last episode of the show is 5,444 days before the Super Bowl, if that's relevant. I'm not sure. Anyway, there were only 2 episodes in the original series in 1983, in the first original series. That date, May 1st, of the first of the 2 episodes that were aired back to back, was exactly 513 months before the Luther V song at the Grammys, this year's Grammys. Luther V, Luther Vandross, as in V. We've been focusing on this letter V, as you can see, because Luther Vandross, who died of AIDS, gives us VAIDS, and it hints at the mark of the Antichrist that gives VAIDS, because V is the 22nd letter. And the mark of the Antichrist is symbolized by the number 22. The number that symbolizes the mark of the Antichrist in the Antichrist in Bible prophecy is also 666, which is why this 513 months is exactly, and God repeats the number 3 times for emphasis of its symbolic meaning, 6 plus 6 plus 6 triangular number. The 6 plus 6 plus 6th triangular number of months, plus the 6 plus 6 plus 6th triangular number of months, plus the 6 plus 6 plus 6th triangular number of months. In other words, it's a big 6-6 connection from V and aliens, which symbolizes the mark of the Antichrist, promoted by demons pretending to be aliens, to the Luther Vandross VAIDS song that won at the Grammys, which is 7 days before the Super Bowl. And that's relevant given this next paragraph, because the V for Vendetta speech, Biden's V for Vendetta speech, the speech from hell, which was symbolic of the bottomless pit, is exactly 41 months before the Grammys. And in Bible prophecy, a key opens the bottomless pit, and the word key is equal to 41 in simple English gematria. A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3. That's an amazing connection right there, because we're talking about the bottomless pit being symbolized with the backdrop to Biden's speech, the speech from hell, the bottomless pit. 41 months exactly to the Luther song, Win. And again, Luther's V is hinting at VAIDS in the mark of the Antichrist, which will be what causes the demonic possession of people by the demons emerging from the bottomless pit. Now, 7 days after the Grammys is when player number 7+7 for the Seahawks will play. Maybe he'll win the MVP. If not, it will be the 7th Super Bowl win for the Patriots. Either way, this will confirm the 7 days. Okay, and the Patriots will win in San Francisco. And this game, which by the way hints at the Vatican, which is symbolized by key, which is the number 41. And this game will be exactly 77 years, 7 months, 7 weeks, and 7 days after Israel was reborn. And it will be played in Levi Stadium. Levi is one of the tribes of Judah. The tribes of Jacob. Or the tribes of Israel. The series of sevens here, including the 7 days to this either 7th Super Bowl win for the Patriots or MVP for 7+7, this series of sevens hints at, and also this connection here, of course, hints at the 3 sets of sevens in the Bible, which was enacted symbolically by the Israelites when they took the Promised Land before the walls of security collapsed in God's judgment on Jericho due to an earthquake. And San Francisco is known for its earthquake during the other championship game in the World Series. That's another thing. Okay, but all of this 3 sets of 7, including the 7 days from the Grammys, and then the walls of security collapsing in the Bible after the 3 sets of 7, is hinting at the Wall Street collapse after the Super Bowl. And here you have it. This is how, what I've been getting at through all this video so far, how all of this is actually part of the prediction for the coming Wall Street collapse because of these series of sevens that are leading to the Super Bowl. And I had to go through the background from the Grammys to give you the 7 days here. And so there you have it. Now, this is amazing. The show V, Aliens, V for Vendetta speech, and Vandross, as invades, Super Bowl LV, how it hints at Super Bowl LX, 22 equals the number, the V, 22nd letter. Bad Bunny hints at 22. Illegal aliens. From the bottomless pit, demons pretending to be aliens, invasion, like the illegal aliens that Bad Bunny supports. You get the idea here. It's all connected. It's all one massive sign that points to the coming demons pretending to be aliens who will resurrect Pope Francis as in San Francisco Super Bowl, who will then be the Antichrist and then give his power to Barack Obama, the second of the 2 Antichrists. Luther's halftime show in Super Bowl 59 was the 2 plus 2 second, whatever, super prime number, which hints at 22 equals V equals Vandross invades. Hugo Weaving, an actor, plays in the show V. Oh, sorry. Who plays V in the movie V for Vendetta? The reason why I didn't get that is because I haven't seen the movie. Okay, so I guess the guy's name is V in V for Vendetta. So Hugo Weaving, if that's the case, I assume he's the antagonist and therefore symbolic of the Antichrist, which would be why he was born 4 + 4 years before Martin Luther King reportedly died. Well, not reportedly died, but so on the date 4/4 in the 4 times 4th state in the year 68. And again, this is the 68th Grammys that Luther, the song, won. So, okay, this guy that symbolizes the Antichrist in this movie was born exactly 4 + 4 years before Luther King died on the date 4/4 in the 4 times 4th state. Amazing. And now Hugo Weaving is born 4 times 4th, I don't know, before Barack Obama. I don't know. Okay, now Natalie Portman is currently 44 years old. Portland is the other main character in the movie. She, at the age of 44, hints at portals that the demons will come through, the door, and the number 4 symbolizes the door because the 4th letter of the Hebrew alphabet is the symbol for a door, which is why Portman is 44. She also, of course, starred in Star Wars, which is about aliens, and so this is more confirmation of the aliens connection here with V for Vendetta and everything that I've been saying. Now, this Super Bowl will be 2 years, 8 months, and 28 days after the Title 42 ended regarding illegal aliens. 42 being the symbolic number of the period of the Antichrist in Bible prophecy. Now, in the show, V starred Robert Englund. He auditioned for Star Wars for Han Solo and Luke Skywalker and recommended Mark Hamill, and Star Wars is about aliens. But there's more to Robert Englund in a second. I think this connection confirms that the demons aliens will claim to be here to assist with nukes, hence Pope Francis. What connection am I talking about? The newer V series stars Morena Baccarin, who stars in the Greenland movies as Gerald Butler's wife. Okay? Now, the capital of Greenland is Nuuk. Maybe these two lines are reversed. That's what it is. Okay, so the star of V stars this actress who also stars in Greenland. Okay, and Greenland is relevant right now in the news, of course, and the capital, of course, is relevant because that's where the controversy lies, the people of Greenland. The capital is named Nuuk. In other words, we already know that the demons pretending to be aliens will claim to be here to help us with the nukes, but this is confirmed with this connection to the Pope Francis Super Bowl. Pope Francis will be resurrected by the demons through demonic power, and that's why they will. That's why Pope Francis, by the way, so that's what I was getting at, because Pope Francis is known for being the big advocate for eliminating nukes. One of his two big things, that and environmentalism. The false religions of peace and the environment. Okay? Now, so Gerald Butler gives us with the initials 7 and 2 and 72, which is 2 times 6 times 6, which is at the 266th Pope, Pope Francis, who was all about nukes and will be resurrected by demons claiming to be aliens because he was all about nukes, because the demons will claim to be here for the assistance for nukes. And Greenland, which Gerald Butler starred in, has the capital named Nuuk. By the way, if you don't know, there's the movie Greenland. It's an apocalyptic movie. Okay, now, in the 1985 V, the series, there were 19 episodes and 1 unfilmed episode. Amazing exclamation mark. How creative is this? I've never seen this before. A number of episodes plus 1 unfilmed. But here it is to give us Revelation 9:11. Because again, Revelation 9:11 in King Apollyon is in context of the demons rising from the bottomless pit, who will then demonically possess people who have taken the mark of the Antichrist, but they will claim to be aliens, hence the connection from the V, or why there were 19 episodes and 1 unfilmed to give us 9/11 with the aliens show. Now, there was this other movie called Stay Hungry, starring Schwarzenegger, who is known for being big from taking injections, which is symbolic of the mark of the Antichrist, and also stars Jeff Bridges, and that hints at the bridge from the bottomless pit, over which the demons will cross over into the earthly realm. Now, the movie, I guess, takes place in Alabama, and Alabama is the 22nd state, and its flag is a big red X over a white backdrop, which hints at the mark, because X is symbolic of the mark, but it's also red, the color of blood. The reason why this Stay Hungry movie is relevant is that it starred Robert Englund as well, although not mentioned in the Wikipedia page. Robert Englund, Freddy Krueger, who was Freddy Krueger in the Nightmare on Elm Street series, was born 11 months and 23 days after Donald Trump. 1123 gives us the I should say inverse of 1123, 1 divided by 1123 gives us 0.0188, which again gives us whoa exclamation mark. No, it doesn't. I'm sorry. This is a typo. The 188th prime number is 1123. Okay. Now, V, the series, first episode, was 53 days. The inverse of 53 is 0.0188. After the recording of We Are the World, which was very prophetic, and that was all about food, which is why stay hungry. Because there's going to be a coming food rationing, as I mentioned, which is why Caesar Augustus took control of the food supply in 22 BC, Obama born in August, and the rationing of food will be only given to those who have taken the mark of the Antichrist, which is why if you take the mark of the Antichrist, you'll be going to hell, which is why you should not take it, and therefore you should stay hungry. See? Stay hungry. Don't take the mark of the Antichrist. Because the mark of the Antichrist is a test of faith. It's an abomination. Not only does it alter you and mark you, your genes, it marks your genes with Satan, because the protruding amino acid is actually snake venom. Snake being the symbol of the Satan in the Bible. And more importantly, though, the reason why it's not only about you, it's about how when you take it, you enable the beast system, the Antichrist system, to compel other people to take it. And that's why it's so wicked. Because if 70% of the people were to say no and not take it, instead of the 40% who are spineless taking it, and not siding with the 30% that are fighting back, the mass hysteria would be over. And also it uses cells from unborn babies in its development. And so it's an abomination. Okay, now Freddy Krueger exists in the dream world, and this is symbolic of the demonic realm. So there's another reason why Freddy Krueger and Robert Englund is tied to all of what we're talking about here in this video here. Through the movie The V, through Luther V. Vandross, etc. Because Robert Englund got his start, his breakthrough was with the V series. Fresh Prince's song about Freddy Krueger, was released on August 1st, 88, 27 years, 6 months, to the Super Bowl, to the Grammys, which is 3 times 110 months, which hints at G131, blood disease. On the day of the Super Bowl, there was a report of an abduction. The mother of the broadcaster on the news show Today, and the abduction is in the plot of the Nightmare on Elm Street series. Guthrie rhymes with Freddy. Abduction of illegal aliens, ICE, which is symbolic of the coming demonic possession or the coming abduction of conservatives and true Christians, both. Because the politicide that's coming from the blue team, the left, against their arch enemies, true conservatives and true Christians, they will be abducted, right? And put into internment camps in the near future. Which is, by the way, what's being set up with the illegal aliens thing. It's all a prelude. It's all setting up the infrastructure for what's coming. But the tables will be flipped. And instead of blue cities waging war against righteousness and integrity of the border, which is what a nation is. Without a border, there's no nation. Anyway, it'll be a flip. The red cities will be at war with the Hitler-like regime in Washington. And everything, of course, everything, and I mean everything, the left accuses the right of, they are the ones that are actually guilty of it, including what's coming. So that's the flip of, it's not true what they say now, but it is true. Like when they said that, well, you just take any example, okay? Any example. When they're fighting for democracy against Trump, they're the ones that are destroying democracy, okay? It's so clear, unless you are completely a fool and have no wisdom at all and do not know what's going on. And this video will hopefully help you open your eyes to the truth about everything. And here I'll just add this too. Anti-ICE hints at Antichrist. They literally have the spirit of Antichrist. They are working for the devil. Believe me, I know far better than you how the prediction made in this video was derived. And more importantly, I know far better than you why the righteous Christian God of the Bible has given me a voice through this prediction. If you are a quote-unquote Christian or Muslim, this prediction was not learned through a demon. Be warned that blaspheming the Holy Spirit is the unforgivable sin. If you are a New Ager or New Spirituality person, this prediction was not learned through somehow tapping into the supposed universal collective consciousness. If you are a conspiracy theorist, this prediction was not learned through figuring out a supposed code that the Illuminati and Satanists are using. This prediction was learned through the Bible and through watching carefully the Lord's prophetic signs, which Jesus commanded all Christians to do. Besides proving that Jesus Christ is the Lord, the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction is to prove that the controversial things that I am saying in the videos on this channel are the truth. Therefore, a wise person will want to watch all of the videos on this channel. What I will also do is create a video or two that summarizes some of the controversial things that the Lord will prove to be true when the prediction being made in this video comes to pass. I will leave links to these must-watch videos in the description box below this video. Again, the purpose of this prediction, that is from God, is to prove these things that I will talk about. And therefore, it would be foolish to not watch the videos that I will leave links for in the description box below this video. Aliens and UFOs are demons masquerading as aliens and UFOs. Most people's spiritual experiences are demonic deception, especially if they are not a true follower of Christ. In the last days, many people who claim to be a follower of Christ will have spiritual experiences that are in reality demonic. God became a man and died a horrible death at the hand of the ruler of this world, Satan, and then defeated death for you, so that you too can overcome death, which is the price that must be paid for sin. It is time to repent, which means to change one's ways and turn to God and become a disciple of Jesus. Do not listen to or follow the example of most quote-unquote Christians. Instead, follow the teachings of Jesus, which most quote-unquote Christians ignore. Like Jesus, you must surrender your life. Put nothing ahead of Jesus, your Lord. Like Jesus, you must lay down your life so that you may live. As Jesus said, one must die first, like a kernel of wheat going into the ground, in order to then grow and produce fruit. And like Jesus said, one must produce fruit, or else like a branch or a tree not producing fruit, they will be thrown into the fire. Jesus was speaking to quote-unquote Christians when he said this. One must die the self in order to be born again. And like Jesus said, one must be born again to enter the kingdom. Like Jesus, you must sacrifice your life for the sake of the coming kingdom. It means to do work that involves some form of sacrifice and risk. To have faith does not mean to intellectually agree. You need to demonstrate your faith through taking action. To have faith means to trust in God's promises. Taking action demonstrates trust and fear of the Lord. The primary reason that the wrath of God is coming upon America is quote-unquote Christians that do not get what I have just explained. The only reason a Christian is alive is in order to help other people become Christians and make it to the kingdom. Do not be deceived by those on the political left claiming to be quote-unquote Christians. There is no such thing as a Christian on today's political progressive left. Jesus said, "Do not think I have come to abolish or change any bit of the law or the prophets of the Old Testament Bible." In other words, the God of the Old Testament Bible is the exact same God of the New Testament Bible. It is essential that you learn about the God of the Bible and his ways. The God of the Old Testament Bible is looking to see who will fear him, and to fear God is not the same thing as quote-unquote revering or honoring God. Through Christ's ransom payment, a Christian is someone who has been redeemed and freed from slavery to sin and Satan. In response, a true Christian recognizes that their life in this world does not belong to them, and they become a willing slave to Jesus for the sake of the kingdom. Please leave a like and upvote the video, and once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more, don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. And don't only put the link to this video or another video on this channel in comments sections of places you typically visit, but importantly, put the link to the video in places you never visit, where people who don't think like you visit. If you are a quote-unquote Christian, nothing in terms of an evangelism tool compares to this video with its prediction. It is a massive bag of gold. Beware of Jesus' warning through the quote-unquote Christian that did nothing with his bag of gold and was banished to hell. Also, read Ezekiel chapter 3 and 33 for this same warning. If you think you might be spending too much time watching videos instead of working and sacrificing for the kingdom through handing out flyers and potentially helping hundreds of people in the same length of time as a video, my flyer is filled with amazing information that people need to know right now, and it points people to the video channel. Now is not the time to be handing out typical evangelical tracts that are largely based in error anyway, such as, quote, Jesus loves you, unquote, for example. You can hand out the flyer on busy street corners, put them on car windshields in busy parking lots, and put them in mailboxes. Just send the file to your local print shop. You can download the file from the website. Please leave a like and upvote the video, and once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more, don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. It is essential that everyone immediately read the homepage of my website, asteroidprediction.com. If you are watching this on the YouTube platform, please note that not all of the videos are on YouTube. You need to switch to the Odyssey.com or Rumble.com channel, and do it now in case you aren't able to later.